Hey, what's good, beautiful people? Of course, you know who I is, the good doc, Dr. Mike, back again, once again, with another interesting classic video for you guys today. If this is your first time watching a Dr. Mike TV video, make sure you subscribe, notify, hit the doc up in all of his social media platforms, check out the ebooks, all of the above podcasts. You know everything I got going on, or you should become familiar with it by looking in the links in the description area below. Teespring shirts, the whole nine should all be linked in the description area below. Ladies and gentlemen, why is it okay for us men, to date single mothers in the East, but not single mothers in the Western world? I repeat, why is it okay to date single moms in the East, but it's not okay, seemingly, for us to date single mothers in the Western world, coming from the United States, coming from that particular mentality? It definitely falls in line with what we have been saying before in reference to why men choose to date women from the East as opposed to dating women in the West. We come from a culture, I include myself as well, wherein women in the West, everything is basically geared towards the protection of them. You know, us men having our own rights, definitely not prominent in many situations when it comes to dealing with women in reference to, you name it, divorce, child support, child custody, the whole nine. A lot of the rules favor women. So I think if a lot of men come through with that mentality, the ideology of even remotely thinking about taking care of a woman and her children in the Western world is something that goes in one ear and out of the other. But yet and still, when you think about it in hindsight, you have men willing to travel 9,000 miles. I don't know if it's actually 9,000 miles, but we'll just say millions, like thousands and thousands of miles to the other side of the world to meet, greet, take care of a woman and her offspring. Now, why would a man travel halfway around the world to do that? I guess they feel as if they come from multiple backgrounds. Okay, now this can take different many stages as far as men are concerned. You can be a older gentleman who has already been divorced, maybe have children that are very old. Maybe you don't necessarily want to have your own child again. So you say, if I'm with a woman that already has a child, I can help raise that child. And a lot of men are okay with this. We'll get to the why a little bit later on. Then you have we'll get into it in a second. But then you have the men who ultimately, the type of guy that I believe most of the men are, you kind of can't help to who you fall in love with. So in actuality, if you do happen to fall in love with a young lady, just so happens to be a single mother, in your mind, you're like, you know what, I'm willing to accept her and her child. And that's normally what any single mother would want. A man who's willing to accept her and also her child and or children. Now, in hindsight for myself, like I said, instant families, they don't necessarily appeal to me. But then again, like I said, you can't help who you love. All right. If the woman that you're dating or the woman that I'm dating, whatever it may be, hypothetically has a child and I'm really invested in her and I'm really okay with the idea of her having a child and, you know, everything's okay, you know, as a dynamic, then why not? But why would men travel halfway around the world to take care of another woman's child in the East when they could do that in the West? As previously stated, women in the West, they don't necessarily treat men all that great. And I think that's really what it boils down to. How can you be with somebody who would probably treat you like a second-class citizen if you're lucky? Number two, put that child's needs above your own. Now, I'm not saying that a woman shouldn't take care of a child, but I kind of feel like if you're the man and you're actually helping to contribute to the biological needs of that child, feeding it, clothing it, and being a father figure in that child's life, but yet and still that child is above your own needs as well, you kind of have that happening. And then you have the idea of, oh, You can't discipline the child if the child acts up. Even though you're the father figure, you can't discipline it. Then you have to deal with baby daddy drama, especially if that dude's in jail, coming out of jail. You kind of deal with the mixed emotions and the mixed, really, really sad, effed up situations that come with dating single women in the West. All right. There's a lot going on with that concoction. And I think situations dealing with women in the East are far less complicated. What do I mean by this? 9 times out of 10, the father is literally just not in the picture at all. Like, even if he is in the picture, he can't afford to take care of the child. He probably left that woman. They never got married, got her pregnant. He's gone somewhere. So he's probably nowhere near in that child's life. So when you talk about a single mother, you literally mean a single mom, as in a single mom raising that child on her own or with her family. The father just isn't around. So I feel like situations dealing with single mothers in the East are just far less complicated than dealing with single mothers in the Western world. All right. And like I said, aside from it being less complicated, you really feel like a man, I would have to say. And you should always feel like a man. Don't get me twisted. But I feel like the women in the East really make you feel like you are the man, that you are the king. And that's whether they're single mothers or not. But I feel like with single mothers, it's amplified times 10 to an extent. And some people may feel me, some people may not. You can agree to disagree. That is perfectly fine. But with women in the East, they have a tendency, especially when they're single mothers, to make you really feel like you are the one, because they know that their time is limited. Number one, they know that the chance of them getting with Filipino men have probably far escaped since they had that child. That's a fleeting thought. You possibly may find a guy willing to accept you and your child in the Philippines, but the chances are slim to none. Okay, I'll be honest with you. Those chances are slim to none. But a foreigner man who is willing to step in to take care of your child, you are going to do whatever you can to keep that man. Filipinas, I'm saying, that are single mothers. They're going to do whatever they can to keep that man, because they don't know if they'll ever find another one willing to accept their circumstances. You understand? They will probably do whatever they can to keep you around, simply because they do not know if they will ever come across another man, a foreigner, American, European, whatever, foreigner in general, that will be willing to take on the responsibility of taking care of her and her offspring. And they understand. They are very, very keen on this. They understand that that child is not your own. So there's always going to be a dynamic of, oh, that's so-and-so's child. That's not your child. When you're in public as the man, foreigner man with a Filipina, and that child looks pure Filipino, don't look like no mix of no kind, the stigma, the ideology, and what people may say or think about the situation is also going to be in probably your mind, if you care, but also in the Filipinas' mind. So they're definitely going to do whatever they can to make the situation work itself out to their benefit. They probably won't be as greedy or as needy to the extent of, oh, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do this? Can you do that? And in hindsight, even if they are greedy, you'll never spend as much money on a Philippine child or a Filipino single mother's child than you would in the United States. Let's keep it real. And I'm going to be honest with you. If I can't claim your child on my tax return in the Western world, then I have no need to take care of another person's child. If I can't benefit from taking care of that child on the tax return, and a lot of my guys can feel me on this, I have no need to take care of another man's child, period. You know what I'm saying? Like I mean, in the Philippines, it is just a little bit different. But why is it different? I mean, I'm definitely interested to hear what you guys have to say in reference to that. Why is it so different? Why is it that, aside all of this, a man is willing to travel halfway around the world to do that. I'll have some men in the comment section that'll say, man, there are plenty of single women in the Philippines. There are plenty of single women that have no children in the Philippines. Why don't you look for them? But when we had the discussion in the live chat, a lot of men would say it could be very difficult to find a Filipina within a certain age that doesn't have children, like 25 and above. Those chances become very, very, very slim. 25 to 30 years of age, it's almost impossible to find a woman who does not have kids unless they've completely focused on career their entire lives. They went to school, did everything, career. They had no time for relationships, took care of the family on their own. So that would be one of the very rare few occasions where you might find a Filipina that is single and then in their later part of their years that do not have children. They do exist. Let's not act as if they do not exist. Single Filipinas above the age of 30 that do not have kids, they do exist. But we did also talk about, if you really want a woman with no kids, you got to look at the women that are in college, the women that are going to school. And you wouldn't necessarily call them women per se because they act more like they are girls. There is an immaturity factor when it comes to dating women 25 years and below. Even 25 is a little bit mature, but if you're looking at 23 and below, you might have to deal with a woman that has an immaturish attitude. The only reason they would actually have to grow up is simply because they have a child, but when mother and father are taking care of them and they're at the house and they're, everything is done for them, they've never lived on their own, whether it be in a boarding house or whatever it may be, you're definitely going to come across some women that have the immaturity mindset. So again, you can find a woman who was older, but slim chances of her being being single without being a mother. Or you can deal with the young immaturity level. So you kind of have to pick your poison when it comes to the Philippines. In the United States, I think the market is pretty much open. You can definitely find women who are older who haven't had kids or anything like that. But when it comes to the single mothers, it kind of becomes a serious effed up situation, because when we say single mothers in the United States, most times that includes multiple children with multiple baby fathers. Okay, so if they do have more than one child, sometimes oh, damn. That dynamic is real. That makes it even worse. Imagine being a single mother of 3 children with 3 different fathers. Trust me, I've seen it. Guys, it gets worse. But I'll say three children with 3 different men. That's just a messy situation. And I think any man would run for dear life if that ever came about. But in the Philippines, like I said, they're just less messy. And honestly, if you do happen to come across a Filipina that has multiple children, let's say they have 2 kids, 9 times out of 10, those 2 children come from one father. Filipinas, for the most part, I'm not going to say all of them, but for the most part, Filipinas are just less messy. And it's very rare that you would find a Filipina that is single that has 2 different children with 2 different fathers. I will not say that it doesn't exist. I'm just saying that it's very rare for you to come across a Filipina that has 2 different children with 2 different baby fathers. Most of the time, single Filipinas, like I said, the dad will run after the first child, so they're probably going to be on lockdown. They might open themselves up to foreigners. If you do happen to come across a Filipina that has multiple baby fathers, maybe the first child is Filipina, but probably likely the second child is going to be a mixed child, because it would be a foreigner that was in a relationship with her that may have gotten her pregnant. That's kind of what I've seen as well, as far as the narrative that I've seen in the Philippines in reference to women that have 2 children from 2 different fathers. Usually the second father is of some type of foreign descent. He convinced her, oh, I'll take care of you and your child, get her pregnant, and then he kind of pops off to another island or something like that. And I'm not saying that foreigners leave their women. Trust me, I'm not saying that, because, that kind of fucks up my own, puts a stigma on myself as well. I'm just saying that in situations where I have seen 2 different children with 2 different fathers in the Philippines, that would be the reason that I've seen it happen. All right. But like I said, ladies and gentlemen, I am definitely interested to hear what you have to say about this. Why do you believe men travel thousands of miles around the world to sleep or to be with Filipinas that already have their own children? Let me know if that's okay for you in the comment section below. Let me know how you feel. Definitely interested to hear what you guys have to say. I feel like I've touched on it as best as I could. I know I'm not going to hit on all the points, but I hope that I touched on all of the key points. That's all I cared about. And with that being said, the good doc is officially out. At least nako paalam, which means we're going now. Bye-bye. As always, love you guys. Mahal kita. Mabuhay. Peace.